Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Roundtable. It is summertime, and as we all know, everyone is all over the place as ministries go in the summer. Half the people are on vacation, half are on a missions trip or on VBS or team camp or sabbatical. Everyone's out of town. And so, as we've seen last summer and is true this summer, a lot of guys are going to hop onto this for the replay, and they'll join us remotely that way. So it's kind of nice though to have a smaller group and to be able to really dive in a little deeper sometimes on these summer topics. So I know even our speaker today just got back from vacation, so did I. So, and Jason's out on a missions trip. So, you know, it's true to form. Karel, would you pray for us today as we get started? Let me just go ahead and unmute yourself. We're going to stay in this kind of group forum until Dustin comes on to speak. Go ahead, Karel.
All right, let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for this time that we have to get together to just lift you up, God, and just to get ideas on how we can better the ministries that you have entrusted to us, God. Just pray that you bless this time that we have today. And we thank you and love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, I don't know what happened last week because I was out of town, and I'll watch the replay soon. But I do just want to remind you guys, we are very quickly approaching Idea Night. I'm sure many of you are hosts. And if you are a host, you've figured out by now that I am not the one leading Idea Night this year. Corey Knopf has been doing an incredible job with that. We are just a bit under a month away from that event. And so, of course, as members, you guys get 2 free tickets for yourself and for another ministry leader, for your spouse, whoever you'd like to invite to that. So definitely take advantage of those tickets and that opportunity that comes with your membership. And that's coming up super soon. We also have a friend day next week on the 19th. Jason has probably mentioned a lot of details about this. He's definitely running the show when it comes to that. So I'll let him communicate the details. He has gone on a missions trip though. I think he left this morning. So he'll be, you know, a little intermittent there, but in the emails that he sent out on Friday, I'm sure he'll give a lot of details on that as well. But basically invite a friend to Friend Day next week on the 19th. And we're really excited for what we've got with that. And I believe Pastor Jeremy Rands is going to be speaking. So today we have one of our very own members who is joining us, Dustin Alley. Now, a lot of you know Dustin Alley personally, probably through the network, through membership. But what you may not be aware of is that Dustin Alley has actually taken on a somewhat of a position with the Idea Network staff and crew, and he has been working directly with Robbie Green to develop our mentorship and what we formerly called the Mastermind. And so they are completely revamping that entire program. They've been working this whole year on it already. Dustin has flown out to Texas to have intensive meetings with Robbie Green, and they have already come up with some amazing things for that. Really just the heart to mentor young pastors and pastors in need, ministry leaders as a whole, as it expands. And so we're really excited about what Dustin is doing and what he's already contributed to the leadership. And so we're excited to have him on the team and to have him speaking today. So Dustin, you can tell us a little bit more about that and share what you'd like, and then hop right into your session for today.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kylie. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to try today to do what Kurt Skelly talked about of just staring at the camera and not looking down at myself. So if I start to look down, one of you guys like wave at me, I'm going to look back up. if I see you. All right. So my name's Dustin Allen. I'm the lead pastor here at Liberty Baptist Church in Bristol, Connecticut. Thankful to be able to join Robbie and the network and trying to get the mentoring program relaunched. We're hoping that'll come out in January. I've got a few guys, a couple of you I think I saw on here participating that are actually volunteering to help out with that as well. And I really appreciate you and the work you're doing. So that's going to be an awesome time. I was talking with Kylie about my vacation. I went down to Tennessee. If you've never been to Tennessee, you're missing out on God's country, but you got to go to the east side. The west side is flat and nobody wants to be there. You got to go where the mountains are, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, great places, go visit. But while I was there, I was visiting in some churches. I brought up the network and was talking with some people there. And I was telling Kylie this, she said, hey, you should share that. So what I want to share with you is, as you're talking with people that aren't familiar with what the network is, a way to explain it. So how I explain the network to people is I compare it to the SBC and SIN network. The SBC exists or the state convention exists for the existing church. They're there to help out the existing church. The SIN network exists for planting churches or the church plant. Both of them try to equip, enable, empower, and help out the ministry leader that is a part of that existing church or that church plant, but that's not their niches. The Idea Network fills the gap. The Idea Network exists for the ministry leader. We're there to equip, enable, and empower, and any other E words that alliterate that you can put in there for the ministry leader themselves, whether that's the pastor, the staff, the pastor's wife, ladies that are in ministry. We exist not for the organization, but for the person that's there, because we believe by investing in the individual, we are going to have a greater impact on their organization. And that's kind of where our coaching program comes from as well. What we're looking to do there is develop I don't want to go into all the details because we're still working them out, and I know we'll launch it with marketing and stuff, but we want to develop a program that allows for the network to partner with ministry leaders and invest in them in 4 different areas that I'm actually going to talk to you about today. Kylie, I'm really glad you brought up the network or that mentor program, because what you're hearing today about servant leadership and we can't give what we don't have is truly my heart behind working with Robbie Green and developing this program. And I pray that it resonates with you and that it's a help to you. Because the purpose for me talking with you today is to challenge you and to encourage you to examine your own personal growth plan and how you're growing as a leader, how you're growing as a pastor, as a husband, insert role God's given you here. How are you growing in that? And then I'm going to ask you to write down what your next action step is for growth based on what you've heard. And so I believe you'd agree with me, the goal of us as servant leaders is not to increase the quantity of followers, but to increase the quality of the leaders and followers that God has currently given us. It doesn't come by hiring and firing people. Sure, some of us may have to go through that from time to time, but many in the network are a part of ministries where you don't really have a staff. Maybe it's just you, and your ministry leaders, the people you're investing in, are volunteers, and we're so grateful for them. You see, it's in the nonprofit area and church work we see the purest form of leadership because of that. Because there's no incentivizing we can do of, hey, do this or you'll lose your job. We have to love them and lead them, and they follow and they do the work of the ministry partnered along with us. Investing in them with time and intentionality, it can really be summed up in one word: discipleship. We all use that word often. We toss it around. We ask questions about it. But that's really what we're doing as we're seeking to pour into, from the network leaders and as pastors and servant leaders of the church, into people. We're working on discipling them so they can grow closer in the Lord. They can grow in the roles that God has given them. 2 Timothy 2:2 says it best. I'm reading out of a CSB, and I'm sorry if that offends you. What you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, commit to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. Paul, writing to his son in the faith, is telling him, hey, take what I've taught you and pass it on to others and those around you. We see this with Paul and Timothy, with Jesus and the apostles, and with the apostles and those that are around them. Acts chapter 2, verse 42. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Now, I'm sure the apostles had some open air speaking time. However, I believe they would walk around that church in Jerusalem and personally interact with the people that were there. Now, if you're a better historian than I am, we can talk about that another time. But I believe the discipleship, the growth, the teaching that people were getting wasn't just from them standing up and proclaiming what Jesus had taught, but from them sitting down, kneecap to kneecap, and having a discussion of what it was like to live with Jesus, what he taught them in those small group times. But I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are part of the Idea Network. You're leading ministries where maybe you have a Wednesday night service, or maybe you have small groups. Maybe you want to have small groups or life groups or growth groups or whatever you want to call them, groups where you're getting people connected into a small community, into individuals. Why? Well, because Tom Rainer said that if they do that, they stick around longer, right? That's a motivation for many of us, but it's also because we want them to grow closer to God and grow closer to each other. We want them to get plugged in with people that are further along in their walk with Christ to help them grow as believers. We want to equip them so that they can take their next step of faith. How do we tell them to do that? Well, we use all the cliche terms, right? Hey, join a life group because you need to do life together. Hey, make sure you get to a connect group so you can be connected with other people. We toss all this stuff out, but what's the purpose of it really? It's for them to grow. Show of hands real quick. I don't know if I could change my view. I want to see a quick gallery. There we go. Quick show of hands for you guys that are here. How many of you believe that I wrote the question down. I was going to say, how many of you believe the method of growth for a Christian that the Bible prescribes, we would call it discipleship, changes as you become more mature as a believer? All right, I don't see any hands. I don't either. You see, we as pastors are telling people you need to go get connected to someone. You need to go and be a part of a group. You need to have an individual walking with you to help you grow in your faith. We're seeking to push them and have them be a part of all this. But can I be very blunt with you? Do you think we should follow our own advice? Shouldn't we be connected to people that are investing in us? Shouldn't we have someone that will sit kneecap to kneecap with us, or maybe Zoom to Zoom, however you want to say it, that would invest in us so that we can keep growing? Because I think that's the biblical model of growing in our faith. You know, I'm confident I can speak on your behalf and say that we all look to the Bible as our example for faith and practice and how we do things. But I'm afraid many of you and many pastors, many people are like me, and even just a year ago, looked at a verse I'm about to share with you and kind of saw it as the prescription for growth in the Christian life, especially for a pastor. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. King James says, study to show thyself approved, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I am sure you've heard that verse, and it's probably been accompanied with get in the word, study, rightly divide the word of truth, and preach the gospel, something to that effect, right? That's great. I'm not dismissing that. Let me read this for you in CSB. Be diligent to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who doesn't need to be ashamed, correctly teaching the word of truth. Now, for any of you that would like to argue with me on this one, you're welcome to. I'm not being dogmatic about it. But let me explain my thoughts for a moment. The Greek word used that's translated in King James as study is the word, and I don't speak Greek. I barely speak English. I'm from the hills of Tennessee. So if I say y'all and get a little drawl sometimes, my bad, all right? But it's spoudazo. And according to Strong's Concordance, it means to use speed. That is to make effort, to be prompt or earnest, do, give diligence, be diligent or forward, to endeavor to, and then lastly, there's the word study in there. So what was it that Timothy was supposed to study? Was he carrying around copies of Paul's New Testament letters? Maybe. Was he going down to synagogue and grabbing a scroll from time to time and having to study that? Or was Paul telling him to take what he had taught him, what he had spoke to him, what he had been investing in him, and to be diligent, to be faithful to the word that he knew, to be approved of God and to pass it along to others? You see, Timothy was right there with Paul. He was taught kneecap to kneecap. He was taught what Jesus had shown Paul and how to live. He's seen Paul's example. He was discipled by him. He was diligent. He was told to be diligent in presenting himself. Studying the word's a great thing. I don't think anyone in here would say, you know what we should do? We should study the Bible less. But what we can say is that if we study the word alone, we can find ourselves with various wild conclusions. Look at it. There's Kenneth Copeland, who will quote Bible verses, but that's not Bible. How many of y'all seen the video of him blowing COVID away? That was hilarious. You got Joel Osteen. You got all these other guys. They're quoting Bible verses. They're studying the word. But they're not sticking to the word. They're not having anyone guiding them and directing them. They've went off the path, if you will. And maybe someone directed them off the path. There's something to be said of making sure you know who your mentors are, but that's a whole different discussion. What I understand this to mean, though, is that there must be more to growing as a believer than just study. And again, don't neglect your study of the word. Be in the word, and I'm not going to bring, I don't want to bring up the post Kylie put up there that was just yesterday, where I think everybody in the network jumped on there and it was like, it's heresy. We don't want to hash through that again. But what I am telling you is that in studying and seeking to grow, just like you would for a message, you would refer out to a commentary, have someone that you can call and help you grow. Have someone that's walking you through your next steps of faith. Go a step further. And don't just ask them like, hey, what do you think this means? Ask them, hey, can you help hold me accountable to taking this step of growth? God's, I've understood this from the word of God and I want to grow in this area. Is that how you see this? Is that what that is? Talk to a pastor or ministry leader, someone that can mentor you, and then ask them like, hey, can you hold me accountable for growing in this area? You see, I found myself trying to be a servant leader as a pastor. I'm 3 years in, and I'm just getting my feet under me, still trying to figure out what I'm doing. But something I realized is that I was trying to be a servant leader, but I ended up being a systems manager. Why? I was reading the books, I was studying, I was seeking to implement and manage systems and processes for church growth so that we could have very small groups, easy sign-ups, so that we could have the materials so that all the volunteers would have what they needed. I would read the Bible and the passages about how Jesus talks about building a tower and counting the costs. And understanding the application, of course, we preach it. It's about the cost of discipleship, but principally, what have we all been taught? That means you need a plan. That means you put a plan in place and you got to do that. And that was my excuse for creating the project plan for project XYZ that needed to be done. I'd read about God being a God of order. And I would begin to apply that by bringing order into my life or into the ministry through the church administration or function. Completely missing. And guys, maybe I'm the only one that's done this, but I would completely miss just how in awe of God I should be in the order that he has brought in creation. I was just seeing it for this is what I've got to do for ministry. This is what I've got to do to be a servant leader in the church. I was seeing it in that. I was missing the amazingness. I told you I'm from the South. I'm going to make up words. The amazingness of God in the order that he brought. I completely missed the awe of God in the order he created by the function and gifting that he had given me. I completely missed the fact that God is a God of order. I'm not. So what do we do now? What do we do as ministry leaders? What do we do if studying isn't enough? How do we grow? What if it's not just enough to invest in ourselves in that particular way so that we can invest in others? I'm going to tell you what I've done. I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to share my heart for the mentor program where we're looking to launch, because it was with the help of my coach that I learned that as ministry leaders, there are 4 areas that I believe we as pastors and servant leaders in the church seek to invest in others. And when I understood this, it helped me realize even more that if I'm wanting to invest in others, I need to make sure that I'm being invested in the same way. Now, here's a quick caveat to what I'm about to say. You may find yourself extremely gifted at the things that I'm going to talk about. That's great. You might not need someone to invest in you. God bless you. Invest in me. Invest in someone else. Take what God's gifted you with and pass that along to faithful men. All right? But if some of you there are like me, and you need someone to invest in you so you can see it lived out so that you can live it out and follow them as they follow Christ, if you will. The first area I want to talk to you about is shepherding. As pastors and servant leaders in the church, you are going to find yourself shepherding the flock that God's entrusted to you through very difficult times. Maybe you're going to go sit at the hospital with a lady who's going to hear in just a few moments, she's a widow now. Maybe you're going to sit with that couple that has just lost a baby. Maybe you're going to be with a married couple who is losing, whose marriage is just falling apart. You're going to engage in empathy in very strong ways with others. You're going to pour your heart out to them. Can I ask you a question now? Who's your shepherd? Who do you call in crisis? Who's helping you grow in your empathy and your love for people? Hey, let's face it. I'm not asking you to show hands because this is being recorded, but I guarantee if I asked you how many of you have been frustrated by people in your church, how many of you have had those same people call you and they need you to pray with them? They need you to love on them. We shepherd everyone that God sends to us, but who is our shepherd? Yes, we know God is our great shepherd, but who are we calling when we need to cry, when we need to pray, when our marriages are in trouble? Who are we talking to that's shepherding us and showing us what it means, kneecap to kneecap, to be a shepherd? The second area I want to talk to you about is mentoring. Mentoring can mean different things to different people. For the purpose of our topic today, I want to define mentoring as helping you through specific situations. It's a person that you know that you'll call and say, hey, I'm looking to go from pews to chairs. Or maybe you want to go from chairs to pews. I don't know. There's a great market of people trying to sell those things out there. It's someone you call when you need to get through something. Maybe you're trying to go from hymns to a blended service. Maybe you're going from a more contemporary setting than you'd like to and bring it more of a moderate conservative standpoint. Who do you call? Maybe there's interpersonal relationships on your staff you're having to deal with. Maybe there's issues with your volunteers. Who do you call? Who's your mentor? Who can you reach out to and say, hey, I need help. Can you help guide me on this and how to do it? Because we can read the Bible, we can read the books, we can draw the principles, and we can seek to apply them ourselves. I think that's great. I found it more beneficial in my life to find someone, hey, can you help me see this from an outside perspective and walk me through what should be done here? With those two areas, I'd encourage you right now to write down who's your shepherd and who's your mentor. Maybe they're the same person. But I encourage you to write them down because I want you to, once this is all over, give them a call and just say, hey, thanks. Thank you. I'm praying for you. I appreciate you. Because you know as a pastor what it's like to pour into someone in that way. Let's express appreciation to those that are pouring into us. If you don't have one, well, who could it be? The next two areas I want to talk to you about don't deal with crises or specific challenges that you're facing. They're going to deal with everything being okay. You've read the books, you've watched the webinars, you've done all this stuff, and you're just looking to grow. You're just looking to take another step as a leader. You're looking to take another step in your faith journey with God, and you're trying to figure out how to accomplish that. This is where a coach comes in. This is where what we may call a discipler comes in. We as servant leaders and pastors in the church should be discipling others to just grow in their faith. You're going to do some of this from the pulpit, but that's not coaching. That's not discipleship. That's not that one-on-one time or maybe small group time where you get to work with people and help them grow individually in their walk with God and their faith. You see the difference between preaching or reading a book and understanding the material and having a coach or a discipler work with you is that after you read the book, you're on your own for the application and the accountability. But when you have someone that's working with you to help you see the application in the particular context and hold you accountable, someone that says, man, it really sounds like you need to go talk with that church member that's causing some problems. I'm going to call you in a week and I want you to tell me how that conversation went. Well, now you've got someone holding you accountable for that, that's praying for you, that's working with you as you go through and you grow in that area. Or again, that was a situation, but maybe it's just you trying to grow. Maybe it's someone to help you see as a pastor. You've put on, I mentioned this in the talk about the reading the Bible and not taking vacations thing. You've put a yoke upon yourself of expectations that God didn't place there. And they help you remove that and take that next step. So a coach, first off, you need to know that most coaches are paid. Well, why? Why do that? Have you ever sat with someone and invested in them and said, hey, listen, I want you to go read Galatians 1, write a couple notes on it and come back and talk with me next week, right? And then they show up next week and they didn't read it or write anything. Well, have you ever had that happen more than once? It's very frustrating. Now, what if that person was paying you $100 for your time? Well, one, you're less frustrated. But two, you're not going to sit there and just like, look, I'm wasting my time now. I'm not here for the money. I'm here to see you grow closer to God. So coaches are typically paid people, not because they need the money, but because it shows your commitment to growth with them. So we need, as pastors and ministry leaders, to get over this idea that they don't show up at all. Exactly. If I'm paying $100, guys, guess who's coming to that meeting and coming early? Me. We need to have this mindset as pastors and ministry leaders that paying for someone to coach us is bad and we should just be giving it to them for free. No, we should respect the time of the individual, and then we should also be willing to say, I'm committed to this growth. I'm going to invest in myself. Why? So I can be a bigger and better person and sprout my own stuff. Listen, if that's you, don't get coaching from the Idea Network. But most of us want to be able to grow as leaders. Why? So that we can bring God more glory, so we can reach more people with the gospel, so that we can be better husbands and fathers, and so that we can fulfill the roles God has in our lives for his glory, not for us. And Thomas made a great point there. Labor is worth its I kidding. I've lost your chat message before I said it, but great point. Read it in the chat. A coach is someone who holds you accountable. Now, in the church setting, we often think accountability like, okay, if I watch porn, I'm going to have to tell him. If I'm lusting, I'm going to have to tell him. If I'm doing this, that, or the other thing, I have someone who's going to hold me accountable, right? We look at it as we're being held accountable for our sin or to keep from sinning. I want to challenge that thought and use the illustration of saying that's like you're playing the game not to lose rather than playing to win. If I'm playing not to lose, well, then yeah, sure, I'm just going to stay away from the sin. But if I'm playing to win, I'm going to play to do as much damage to the enemy as possible, regardless of what's going on. Whether you're up 10-0, if you're playing to win, you're playing to win. When we're only held accountable for our sin, we're playing not to lose. But when we are held accountable for our growth, we are being held accountable for the most damage we can possibly do to Satan and the work that he does in the lives of our people. We are being held accountable to grow closer to God and be used more by him. So I challenge you, don't just play not to lose. Play to win. Have someone holding you accountable for your growth. Have someone holding you accountable for your leadership and your steps of faith that you're taking. The last thing I want to talk to you about is stewardship. Now, don't be like our people that every time we mention stewardship from the pulpit, every single one of them, dollar signs start popping up, right? That's not what I'm talking to you about. I want to talk about your life. I want to talk about your relationships. I want to talk to you about your ministry. I think as pastors, if we don't think dollar signs, there's a word that comes to mind when we think of stewardship: balance. We think of balance. Can I ask you to do something with that word? Can you take it, ball it up, and just Kobe Bryant it into the trash can and get rid of it? The concept of balance is a great idea, but I keep thinking of the tightrope walker that's used in the illustration of, oh, I'm going too far this way, got to come back this way. Going too far this way, got to come back this way. The concept's great, but I'm afraid with balance, we start to divide our lives between ministry and everything else. Hey guys, I don't know about you, but one thing I've realized, I can't divide my life up like that. That's just my life. That's what God has called me to. So instead of trying to find a balance between, okay, I'm giving so much time to the ministry, I got to come back to my family. I'm giving too much time to my family. I don't know how many of y'all have ever said that. That's not something I'm guilty of. I'm on the other end, and I need to come back to the ministry. Instead of having to play this back and forth game, when we see our lives as a whole, let's stop trying to go back and forth, and let's just find a rhythm to life. I'll illustrate it this way. Obviously, I'm a pretty muscular guy. I go to the gym. No, I don't. I'm kidding. But if I wanted to increase my max pull-ups, right? Some of you might say, okay, well, you go to the gym and knock out a max set, right? All right, let's say I go Monday and I knock out a max set and I get all 2. And then what? The next day, how am I going to feel? Like my arms are going to be killing me, right? Like, okay, I need to do another max set. I need to grow, right? So maybe I push it out. I go through the pain. And just, okay. All right, I'm done. I got 1.5. Like, that's all I got. Well, then Wednesday I wake up and what happens? My arms are killing me. I'm dying. Now I'm either going to push through or I'm not going to do it at all. Knowing me, Wednesday through Saturday just became rest day, right? It's like leg day. Nobody does that. So that's rest day now. But what if I went into the gym on Monday and said, you know what, instead of maxing out, I'm going to do 50% of what I can do. And then I go in Tuesday, I'm going to do 50% of what I can do. Then I'm going to go on Wednesday, I'm going to do 50% of what I can do, right? Now, while I'm doing the pull-ups, don't get this twisted. While I'm doing the pull-ups, I'm giving 100% effort to 50% of my max. I'm not shortchanging myself. But I'm able to do a 50% on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and on Friday. Now, at the end of the week, let's ask the question, who did more pull-ups? The guy who maxed out 2.5 days? Or the guy who gave 100% to half his max Monday through Friday? You see, that 100% is your energy, your compassion, your love, your whatever it is in your heart and your mind that you are giving to your people and you are giving to your family. And if you're seeking balance, well, then it's like, I got to max out. I got to max it out for the church, max out for the church. Well, when you're done, you got nothing. But when you're going in, you're giving 100% to the church and to that time you're at church, the time you're doing your ministry work, if you will, the time you're spending with people, you're there 100% engaged and on point, not being lazy, not scrolling Facebook for 3 hours and having the church pay you for it. No, you're 100% engaged, but you're only using 50% of your energy. You know why? Because there's another part of your life that needs that 50% and it's at home right now. We have to stop this idea of I've got to give 110% for like 3 weeks at a time, and then I'll just take this really long vacation and I'll be okay. That's 3 weeks your family got 1% of you compared to what they should have got of you. So instead of finding balance, find a rhythm. Find a rhythm where you can walk away from church and say, I gave it my all today on everything that I can possibly get accomplished, but I didn't get everything done. Because guess what? It'll still be there tomorrow, but my family needs my energy and my time now. I didn't get everything done this week, but I had a family day planned for Friday. Well, I'll just push it. If you push one, you'll push two, and then they're gone. Set that time aside. Take time for yourself throughout the year. Sabbaticals aren't bad. And sometimes I question pastors, as we call them, sabbaticals. It's just a long vacation, guys. What are you doing, okay? We like to sound spiritual, I know. But not bad. But if it becomes needed in your life in order to continue existing, you've ran yourself too far. But what if we had built into our schedules 1 day off a week where we were spending time with the family? Maybe it's 2 for you. We had one retreat that we went to. We had some time away with other pastors, or maybe as a couple, maybe as a family, whatever it was, where we were investing into ourselves, into our family, into those. What if that was built in? I think that would be better stewardship of what God has entrusted us with than consistently trying to hammer out a max set every single day, only to be exhausted, depleted, and feeling like a failure because we didn't we didn't accomplish the expectations that we set on ourselves, but they're not the expectations that God set on us. So 4 areas: shepherding, mentoring, coaching, and stewardship. Pastors, servant leaders in the church, I challenge you and encourage you to realize you can't give what you don't have. Seek people that can invest in you in the way you want to invest in others, and let them build you up so that you may build up others. What does it look like? Maybe you need to back Andy Stanley, who said the church gets 45 hours a week, and that's it. And some of you church planners might be thinking, what? No way, I can never do it. Love your wife like Jesus loves the church and gave himself for it. Not love the church and give yourself for it. Jesus did that. Jesus will take care of that. Love your wife, love your family. Steward what God's given to you, and have someone holding you accountable, not just for your sin, but for your growth, so that you may invest in others for them to grow. I challenge you with this question, and I'm done. Who is shepherding you? Who is your mentor? Who is your coach? What are you doing to steward the life, not the money, not the time, not the family, not the ministry, the life God has given you? You're going to answer those 4 questions today in a time of prayer and reflection, and then take a step. What's your next step you could do based upon what you've heard today in order to grow as a servant leader so that you can grow others. Thanks for your time, guys. Kylie, I'm finished.
Thank you, Dustin. I was challenged by that as well. And, you know, we each have different roles in ministry. I know we have some church planters on here, some lead pastors, some assistant pastors, and ministry leaders across the board. But we can all definitely take away a lot from that. So I definitely appreciate that. From, you know, discipleship, I don't know of many churches who have a discipleship program anymore. It's an interesting thought, though, because even the church I go to doesn't have a discipleship program, not like at least one that I was involved in college. So I don't know if it's maybe, and you guys can speak into this, is the discipleship program considered old-fashioned? Maybe you guys actually do have a discipleship program in your church, and this is more talking about, you know, church members, but you know, the discipler also receives from the discipleship process, even as much as the disciplee does. But I just thought that was an interesting thought of like, where has the discipleship program gone? Do any of you have a discipleship program? Do you know of a church? Is there maybe a reason you did away with it? Let's start off the conversation with that. I know Thomas Osterkamp and Steve Miller always have something to say, so you guys can jump in first here.
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, ours is 20 weeks long, so we have 16 sessions that we lead people through. We keep it kind of versatile, so we don't make somebody commit to 20 weeks, like every Tuesday at such and such o'clock for 20 weeks. We set the first one, we meet, we go over the stuff. There's a lot of things involved in that as far as Bible reading, like outreach, those sort of things. But for 16 weeks, they're taught the sessions. And then the final 4, whoever's being discipled leads their discipler through any of the 16 sessions. So they get some practice before they jump out and are discipling their own person. But ours is for 20 weeks. That's going to take you, based upon schedule, maybe half a year to get through. But by the time people are done with it, you've had investment both directions, and that person feels confident enough to be able to lead somebody else.
And that discipleship program is separate from your membership classes.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yep. It's we refer to it as spiritual mentoring, but yeah, same thing, discipleship.
Very cool. Anyone else before we get to Dustin's official questions?
Hey, Thomas, what program or what curriculum do you use for that? Do you use any?
Actually, it's kind of a funny story because a couple years ago, Josh Ermler had posted about so many people graduating from his discipleship program that he was doing. So we had nothing at the time, and I sent him a message and I was like, "What curriculum do you use?" He said, "I'm not giving it to you. Develop your own." And at the time, I was like ticked. Like, this is not helpful at all. Like, but it was the best answer he could have given me. And so I've taken our discipleship path and basically decided what do people need to know in order to walk their way through our discipleship path. So that's kind of how we did ours. It's self-developed. I kind of took some things from different places and tailored it to what we're doing here.
Very cool. All right, first question here. And these questions are in the chat as well, if you kind of want to think ahead through the different questions. What do you see as the greatest obstacle to your growth as a leader, Christian, or person? Starting off with a doozy. Adam, I see you down there. Do you want to start us off with this one?
Which one?
Oh, sorry. I was referring to Adam Pearlstein, but I thought Adam Ray. I'm so sorry. I saw you earlier, but I wasn't looking at your name just now. I was looking at you, Adam Pearlstein, but Adam Ray, okay. If you'd like to jump in, go for it.
Sure. Give me the question one more time.
So what do you see as the greatest obstacle to your growth as a leader, Christian, or person?
I would say probably oftentimes it's fear of either not succeeding or not accomplishing what I'd like to accomplish, or simply probably I would say it's fear, even just personality, being very introverted, not very outgoing, and knowing that right now I would not recommend this or advise this to anybody, but right now being sort of the only pastor at my church, and sort of having to head everything up, even though I can see now that I'm doing it, areas where I definitely am not as well equipped and could certainly use additional pastoral help. But that's probably for me, I would say.
Adam Bray, because I know you were already thinking.
I have a lot of obstacles right now. This is my second week. So as a senior pastor, so I agree with Adam on this. I have a lot of fear of failing, want to succeed right now, really want to advance this church forward for the cause of Christ. So yeah, there's a lot of that in me right now, to make sure that what I'm doing is truly what the Lord wants me to do and not what I want to do.
Anybody else?
Hey, Adam Bray, you just made a statement, fear of what the Lord wants to do versus what I want to do. Can I ask a question? And this is anybody. Are those two different? Do those have to be two different things?
They don't have to be. I feel like if I'm I feel like right now this year has been one of the greatest years of ministry for me personally. So I feel like that I'm really close to the Lord right now. I guess where I'm going with what I want versus what the Lord wants is making sure that I'm not easily being influenced by what people want, not easily influenced by looking around me and seeing the success of other people. Like for instance, I'll use just Stephen Miller as an example. I think kind of what he walked into at Heritage and what he has shared with us is something I've walked into here as well. And I want to make sure that everything I progress forward here and transition here is done in a way that doesn't drive people away, doesn't cause my name to be out there. I want the Lord's name to be out there. I talked about this past week about what true worship is and making sure that it's us individually, but working together to progress Christ. I don't want to make it where it's just about us. It needs to be about Christ and reaching this area with the gospel. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, sorry, no, great.
Definitely does. All right, second question here. Do you agree that in order to disciple others, you must be a disciple? If so, how are you leading by example in your life? And if not, why? Nick Carnes, and then Rob Redlin, and then whoever wants to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, because it's leading with integrity. I mean, it's doing what you are calling other people to do, leading the way, and kind of setting that pace. And so I think it's important for others to see that you are being discipled by someone else as well. As we learn, we can only pour out what is poured into us. And so if we're not growing, then we're going to become stagnant. We're going to kind of get limited in what we're able to invest in other people. So by being invested into as well, having that accountability, having a mentor or a coach ask us the tough questions, it also helps model for us, how to lead others. How are we being led? And I think that's biblical. I think we see it in scripture that the older teach the younger. And if we don't set that example, then we can't expect it from the rest of our church or those that we lead.
In all fairness, I have 3 mentors in my life, and I'm grateful for all three of them. I meet with all three of them once a month, all separately. So I have people that speak into my life. I would not necessarily call it discipleship, more mentorship. So if I have problems, if I have questions, they help keep me accountable. I also have an accountability partner. But do you have to be discipled to disciple other people? Well, the elder teach the younger, but who's teaching the elder? So you have been discipled, but do you have to be in a permanent discipleship relationship? Well, I think with Jesus Christ, yes. But with a human being, maybe not. I mean, did Paul stay in a discipleship relationship with somebody over him? I don't know that we know that 100% sure. But did he disciple other people after he was discipled? He most certainly did. And we see that Paul became, I think he humbled himself and was under somebody else. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is going to be reversed. And Paul became the speaker, became the leader. So I don't know that I could definitely say, yes, you have to be in a discipleship relationship in order to disciple somebody else. I'm grateful for the mentors I have, and I have 3 young men, all college students that I'm discipling right now. I think you better be discipling somebody or you're not doing the work that we're called to do. So that would be my answer.
Pastor Rob, where or how did you select those 3 mentors?
Honestly, I think it was more the Lord doing it for me. So I hesitate to tell who they are, but one of them, of course, is Dave Tice. And it through our relationship, it just kept growing. And I just said, hey, could we make this a once-a-month thing? And he said, well, it kind of already is. And I said, well, I'd like it to be a little more official. And he was like, yeah, let's do it at this time every month. And so Mrs. Tice also helps with my wife. So I wouldn't say it's quite once a month, but it's pretty close to that. And so it just grew out of our friendship. Another one is my oldest brother. He's the pastor of the campus church. I count heavily on his, but we set a time every month to kind of not be brothers, if you will, but he as a mentor and me a mentee. So, and the third one is a college prayer partner of mine, and he is my accountability partner, and does a great job with that. And let me express this. We also know what each other is looking at on our computers. And so that is a great accountability as well. So it just kind of grew out of who God placed in my life. And I also pay somebody to meet with me once a month. And then I can say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. This is how I want it. And I can have that expectation of this is what they're going to do for me as well. So that's how it came about for me.
So it's less about finding this magical, perfect mentor and being intentional about asking even the mentors around us or even peers to just speak into our life. Because it is so easy to lose perspective on ourselves because we can't always see ourselves from every angle, and someone else can do that for us. So we only have about 10 minutes here, not even. So let's keep moving. Question 3, what keeps you from hiring a coach to help you grow? Rob just mentioned he does pay someone every month. Does anyone else do that? If you don't, maybe why not? Dustin, you do as well. Does anyone else have a coach already or a mentor in that paid capacity? And maybe what growth or intentionality have you seen in your life that has affected you positively?
Yeah, I'll speak in a little more detail about mine. It's been an amazing experience. I've had a coach since I think about October of last year, and I've just personally been able to grow. And really what I mentioned yesterday about putting that yoke of expectations upon myself, my coach was able to help me kind of clear through some of that. And Adam Bray, that was where that question came from for you as well, what the Lord wants versus what I want. My coach helped me kind of navigate that and see how, God, and I believe in a sovereign God. I'm the pastor of the church. That doesn't mean I can go out here and just do whatever I want. There's a foundation of walk with the Lord and seek his guidance in his face, if you will. But the desires that God's given me for my heart, I take, does it line up with scripture? Does it glorify God? Does it help us proclaim the gospel? And then I take it to, our leaders, and I'll talk to them. And if they're not on board, like, well, then there's not unity in the church, and I need to figure out why and what's going on. Is it something I need to lead through because there's misunderstanding? Is it just an absolutely terrible idea and I'm not following God on this? And so, but that's an area of growth for me. And then having someone invest in me in that way has helped me be more confident and feel more capable of investing in our staff, our deacons, and our lay leaders as well.
Craig, I see you turned your camera on. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll speak to the other side of that. What keeps you from hiring a coach to help you grow? I think it's we miss an important part of having an actual coach that we meet with on a regular basis. For me, I've kind of lived my life. I'll read a book, I'll listen to a podcast, kind of thing. So I'm going to do it, in my own time. But we get busy, and so instead of holding ourselves accountable or holding ourselves to something, we can get lax in what we're doing. And having a coach put you on the spot. They hold you accountable. They're there to question you, make sure you're following up on whatever it is that you guys have talked about, whatever you're trying to implement into your life.
Definitely. It's a discipline, just like anything else. Okay, there's 4 of you who have said nothing. Brian, Walter, Steve, Carell, do you want to speak into this? We also have one more question. If you want to jump to that one and speak into that, that's fine.
What's the question?
Okay, so the current question is, what keeps you from hiring a coach to help you grow?
Money.
Yeah. Anyone else? Steve, you look like you're about to say something. You've been uncannily quiet.
I'll say it. All right. So here's my thought. This is honest thoughts on this. Okay. I'm all for a coach, and I understand that. I do think, though, culturally right now, we so focus on this transactional development that we miss organic development. So that, and if I can speak very openly and honestly, as a lead pastor, I've probably experienced some of the most loneliest times in my life in ministry as a lead pastor. Very lonely. And what's often kept me from hiring a coach or paying for that is I feel in some ways it's shallow. It's this person is investing in me because I'm paying them to invest in me. I think as ministry leaders at the levels that we are at, I think there's something to be said about just being aware that we're all dealing with the same burdens and issues and problems, and just every now and then reaching out and just saying, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? And I'll just be honest, I'm not like complaining about this, but there are times honestly in my ministry where like, man, I needed that more than anything. Like I just needed someone to think about me. And there's like 1 or 2 times that's happened. I'm like, oh, wow, thank you. So that's like my heart. I think what keeps me from doing that is because it feels transactional. And I feel like somebody cares because I'm paying them to care. And I think there is a part for that. There is space for that. But I think we as pastors and leaders, and I put myself in that, need to be, I think, more intentional about caring for each other organically. And that would be some of my hesitation of not hiring a coach. Because I think once we hire a coach, then it's like, okay, problem solved. I can just complain to my coach. I can just talk to my coach. I can just whatever to my coach. and I'm not really developing a relationship, because the moment I stop paying is the moment he stops caring. And so I think that that's where I feel like I would love to see us connect more organically, and reach out to each other more. Those are my thoughts.
I think if you first, a good thing about hiring a coach, and I've done it before, I'm not doing it now because I don't have much money, but when somebody's asking for help, if you're paying somebody for help, that it's kind of like where your treasure is, there, that's where your heart is going to be. I feel like if you're paying for advice, you're going to be a little more, if you're paying someone for their time, because our time is valuable, and people ask me for my time in IT and they waste my time. They ask me what to do, and even as a pastor, people, they waste my time because they want me to give them answers. I tell them what to do to solve their problem. They don't do it. But if I'm paying somebody to do it, to give me advice, I'm more likely to at least try it out, because otherwise, like, well, that's just, you know what I mean? Or if it's just really bad advice, then it's on them. But usually something like that, you're getting there's a higher level, I think, of expectation of something where you're going just for that. But I do agree, organic, I think, is a good as well.
Justin, you have anything to say? We've got a few announcements before we wrap up here, if you want to add anything.
And just raised his hand.
Who did? Sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
I know I never speak, so I just sit in the corner and listen. I haven't ever paid for a personal coach, to be honest, never really thought a whole lot about it. But kind of to what Stephen said, is that with the development of the Idea Network and all the guys that we have across the country, there's a number of guys I've reached out to and just asked different things depending on what the area is, and been able to get, help. And then obviously through some of the other events. So I say I've never paid for that. I mean, to an extent I have, because of some of the Idea Network events, have done some of those things with the Idea Retreat and so forth. And then of course we get coaching with that afterwards. But that's just kind of the way it's been for me. And I reach out to those that when I've got an area that I need something in, and I'll talk with them and kind of walk through some things. They give me some ideas and some counsel and those things. So,
Kyle, I know we're getting close to time. Rob Redland, I don't know about your experience with a coach, but I know mine. And Stephen, to your point, yeah, if it's just transactional, then no, there's definitely a shallowness to it. But Rob, I don't know if you can speak to this, but I know with my coach, we developed our relationship, and then, it goes there. Now, if I stop paying this person, they're going to stop meeting with me twice a month, right? I believe this person is genuine and truly cares for me.
And they know what questions to ask and how to ask them and when to ask them, and get to the root cause of what you might be going through.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And so just to throw it out there, if you get a coach and it is purely transactional, get another coach. You got a bad one. But that's just my 2 cents on that. Thanks for your input, Steve and Brian.
Correll, last chance. Do you want to say anything? I don't want to leave you out.
I mean, yeah, I can. For me, it's just never been a option. Like, never had that option to get a coach in the first place, because I would just reach out to people and they just speak into my life for that. But I see the benefit of having a coach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the multitude of counselors, there is wisdom. All right. Well, we have one more question. You guys can, we can always talk about that on the Facebook group. We've got to wind down, and it's summer, so I know you guys are super busy. I'm going to put the link to the meeting in the chat. Remember, next week is Friend Day, so share this link with a friend or two or multiple if you think they would be interested in joining next week's discussion. And, finding this community of friendship, and hopefully through that, doing what we talked about today and developing organic relationships that can turn into accountability partners and mentorship. So invite a friend, share the link. Next week is open. to anyone who wants to join that has an invitation from one of you guys. So feel free to share that, and we'll see you next week. Bye.